And that's what creates all the conflict. So what he's saying is, get detached. What is detachment? Detachment is when you let go of your demands, you let go of your expectations, you let go of your selfishness and say, let me see how I can make your life better. How I can add value to you through emotions. Let me just love you for what you are. Let me accept you for what you are. I have no expectations, no demands, nothing. And that makes for wonderful relationships. Krishna in his very life has epitomized what detachment is. Right through his life, he had wonderful relationships with people, whether it was his friends, whether it was his mother's friends from whom he stole butter, whether it was the gopis later, whether it was whoever it was. But he had no expectation from them, he just gave. So then all the fights, the quarrels, the dissent comes to an end. Let's take a brief look at what happens when you get attached. What happens when you get detached? Attachment is dependence. Dependence on a return. So you establish a relationship and there are provisos, there are conditions. I love you provided you do this for me. This is attachment. Whereas detachment is where you're independent of a return. The return may come, the return may not come. Your love continues irrespective. Second, in attachment, there is an expectation. In detachment, you are full of acceptance of the person. With the pluses, with the minuses, you adore the person for what he or she is. In attachment, there is collision, because desire and ego puts you on a collision course with others. Collision and conflict. In detachment, there is cooperation. Where you are attached, you lose. Swami Ramatirtha puts it so emphatically in his lectures. He says, the moment you get attached to a thing or being, understand there will be two things that will happen. Number one, the relationship itself will go sour. Number two, you will lose the object of attachment. And he says it so emphatically, it's a wake-up call to us. So if you want to retain your relationships, if people around you are dear to you, you have to somehow find a way of getting detached. Detachment is true love. Attachment is self-love. Most importantly, when you get attached, you devolve. When you're detached, you evolve. The relationship continues, but there is a completely different attitude, a totally different outlook. And in attachment, you just lose your personality, you lose the object of attachment, you just go downhill. So, families are breaking up today, divorce rates are going up, business partnerships are breaking up, and all this is happening because attachment or selfishness is increasing. What is the result of detachment? Number one, you achieve siddhi, success, prosperity. You are then able to connect with ordinary people and get them to come up with extraordinary performances because they are greatly motivated with love. Love is a great motivator. Second, sukha, cheer. You are a detached person is a happy person. And when you are happy, you spread that cheer around. When you're morose and depressed, you spread depression around. You know, if there's one person who's in a bad mood in the house, everyone gets into a bad mood, including dogs keep quiet. It's true. But when you're cheerful, everyone around you is cheerful. That's why Ramatirtha said, if you're in a bad mood, remember it's the most deadly infectious disease. Lock yourself up in a room till you find it in you to regain the ability to smile and be cheerful, just happy. You get param gatim because your desires drop. Your emphasis then is on serving others. Others' desires take precedence over yours. And before long, because you're not feeding your desires drop, you purify your personality. Third, intellect. The intellect today is focused on just the world. So you're constantly planning, scheming, discriminating, manipulating the world for your welfare. What the Gita says is, you must use the intellect to discriminate between the world and that which is beyond the world, which brings in your conscience or subtle intellect. The intellect is of two kinds. One is the gross intellect, which just distinguishes between pairs of opposites in the world without any value judgment. There's no higher, lower, right or wrong. Just two pairs of opposites, like black and white, day and night, so on and so forth. But when you bring your subtle intellect into play, which is colloquially referred to as conscience, then there is a very strong sense of right versus wrong, higher versus lower, the world and that which transcends the world, that divine force. So, when you use your intellect to discriminate between the world and beyond, you get freedom. As long as you are stuck to the world, you're bound by it. The world is a prison. And the ability to understand that you are bound is the first sign of wisdom. You know, the problem is, when you are in a state of conditioning, it's very difficult to understand that you are conditioned. For instance, a drunk person will never admit that he's drunk. Right? You haven't experienced that. I don't mean getting drunk, but so there's no point sitting there, when the husband gets drunk, the wife goes on saying, you're drunk. There's no point. He can't understand. Similarly, you and I are born in this prison of the body, mind and intellect, and all our lives we live like that. It's very difficult to understand that we are bound, we are imprisoned. Even an ordinary prison, take a prisoner who goes in there for a life term. How long does he struggle to get out? For how long does he have the vision of freedom in his mind? 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. Thereafter, that prison becomes his world. And then he doesn't even want to break free. And that is our state. So, in order to break free, you have to use your intellect to distinguish between matter and spirit. The result of this, siddhi, success. Why? Because you become a clear thinker. Anybody who has clarity of thinking is highly creative, objective, and successful. Why are we not successful? Because we have confused thinking, we are not objective, we are not creative. Second, sukha, happiness you get because your happiness is not dependent on the world. Your happiness rests in that which is beyond the world, which is a constant. So there'll be physical fluctuations, there'll be emotional fluctuations, there'll be intellectual changes. You are unaffected by that. And the last is, you reach that state of param gatim, realization, because you have an intense desire to get beyond the world, therefore desires for the world drop. It took us a few minutes to speak about this, but to live it and gain the benefit from it takes a lifetime. But every few steps forward that you take reaps rich dividend, rich reward. So today, being the second last day, commit yourself to it, for which you need to expose yourself to the knowledge. Study every morning for your intellect to gain this distinction between the world, matter, and spirit that is beyond. Throughout the day when you work, you need to work in a spirit of dedication, giving. And sometime during the day, you need to open your heart out to wonderful emotions, listen to uplifting music. And if you do a combination of these three, you'll find a meteoric rise in your personality. For now, we move to verse 64.